Okay, so this is my third video in terms of the series of videos that I'm going to be showing for the newcomers to Children Need Both Parents or fathers who are just starting down the road of parental alienation. Once again, I'm sharing my journey. This might not be your journey exactly, so perhaps you can only learn bits and pieces from it. In my experience, or for a lot of fathers that I speak to, that this is the road that happens to most of us. So hopefully it can be of help. On the Facebook post, I have attached the protection orders or restraining orders, as you refer to them as in the US. Have a read through. I know that they are very lengthy, but they do show the extent of which accusations can go to in protection and restraining orders. Just to begin by saying that both of these protection orders were dismissed in my favor. Okay, so to the point of the video. So basically step one is you don't usually get served with a protection order. It's usually an interim protection order, which means that you need to go to court to show just cause or just means or defend yourself against the accusations as to why a final protection order should not be issued or warranted against you. What is important, I've repeated this 1,000 times, on an interim protection order, your wife or your partner needs to have no evidence whatsoever attached to her affidavit in order for an interim protection order to get issued on you, in which case, if it does, you will be removed by the police from your domicile. In most of the applications of interim protection orders, your wife or your ex-spouse is going to attach the fact that she doesn't want to see you, let you see your children. Most magistrates, unless there is horrific immediate harm and evidence within the affidavit, won't really grant that. Which means that you don't have a protection order or an interim order, usually not to be able to see your child. However, by mere fact that the police have escorted you out your home, she is now in direct residency or custody of your children. So therefore you need to go through her to see the children, but you have an interim order which then blocks you from communicating to her. Now guys, the first thing here is, and please, if there is a lawyer listening to this, correct me if I'm wrong, it's something I wish I had done. On the interim protection order, you've got 24 hours to appeal that protection order. I didn't see it in my panic of receiving it because I'd never received that before. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, get into court within the 24 hours and fight. If it's a false affidavit, and you don't even need a lawyer to do this. If it's full of falsifications, doesn't have evidence, you've done none of these things in terms of accusations, get yourself into court within the 24-hour period. This enables you to continue seeing your kids as quickly as possible, because if that's dismissed in 24 hours, if it's not dismissed in 24 hours, you're going to wait 2 or 3 months. This was my first very, very big mistake in a protection order. The other huge mistake that I made when receiving the first protection order is I rushed off to go and see a lawyer who obviously advised me it's time to attack. And he launched a high court summons and a divorce hearing and everything else because he thought this would hurt her. And this was his advice to me. And I was completely really not in a state of mind to be dealing with anything at this point. I mean, I just wasn't seeing my kid who I was basically a stay-at-home father, hadn't my child taken away from me. So a fairly traumatic experience for me. But again, you don't need to go to a lawyer, guys. Don't let them push you down the road of the high court. Fight a protection order within the first 24 hours. Get the protection order dismissed. Then get into the magistrate's court under an application of order to see your children and have your full parental rights and responsibilities acknowledged by that court, and a full contact schedule set up by that court whilst you're waiting on a parenting plan to be drawn up. As you can see in my protection orders or restraining orders, the accusations literally go from hero to zero. So you cannot be surprised by this. Do not let this affect you emotionally. Understand that once you've received the interim protection order, that the game is already in play. Be sure to understand that she's already got a lawyer or legal advice or a friend of hers who has gone through this process. This is almost not a personal attack. I know it sounds very, very weird to say that, but it is more of a legal strategic attack in order for your wife or your ex-partner to get on the higher foothold in terms of being able to have the moral inclination to keep your children away from you. So this is what it's actually about. So don't let the accusations hit you too much in the gut. These are generally made up stories. On the first protection order, you will be accused of domestic violence. You will be accused of imminent threat to your wife and your children's lives. I've had so many reports from women themselves who tell me that the clerks of the court even advise women down this road of saying what you should be saying. And a very important statement is to say that there's imminent threat or danger to her or your child. Again, don't take these things personally. If I can finish this up, I see this video is getting a bit long. If you win on your first order, you can surely expect a second interim order to be coming your way very shortly. I know fathers have gone through 3 or 4 of this. It's simply a case of moving from one residential dominion of a family court to another residential dominion. In other words, she can move from Alberton, for example, to Fourways, which would then put you under a different jurisdiction of court, which means you can reapply for another protection order. South African family law systems and the court systems do not work on software, so there's no red flag if she has been, or if you have won on a protection order in another court. In the second protection order that you will be receiving, or interim protection order, again, brace yourself for even more dramatic accusations. These will include, if you have a daughter, the fact that you have either sexually abused her. If you have a son, this will be a physically abused. So these are really hard-hitting things for fathers. Again, if you receive that second application to an interim order, get it dismissed within the 24 hours. Don't wait the 3 months. Defeat the designed attack against you. So the designed attack is to try and remove the children away from you as long as possible. So by the time you get into court to fight for your child, the argument has been then that you haven't seen your child for 6 months. The child has now got used to all the residency, or the status quo is the word that they like to use in terms of now where the child lives. And the court then puts emphasis on the stability of the child rather than your contact with the child. So, again, I can't stress this enough. If you receive interim orders, don't take it personally, react and move quickly. You do not need lawyers. You don't need 500,000 Rand to fight these things. If you have done nothing wrong, you haven't beaten your life, you haven't threatened your wife, you haven't threatened your kid, and there's no evidence in that protection order that suggests otherwise in her affidavit, get there within a 24-hour period and get this thing settled. Then get into a magistrate's court and ask for a contact schedule to be set up, citing the fact that the protection order has been dismissed and that you suspect that this is what is coming, that parental alienation syndrome is going to be administered onto you. Anyway, if you have any comments, queries, questions, criticisms, please share. We're all learning as we go. Thanks for listening. Cheers, bye.